Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. We appreciate everybody that's rocking with us, the folks listening to us on YouTube and on the replays, as well as the folks listening to us live on Legacy Internet Radio, on TuneIn, Streamer, iTunes. Y'all rock with us. We roll with y'all. As I mentioned to you before, of course, we have a returning fave, very special guest that's rejoining the family here live from the Den of Legacy Internet Radio. My big brother, the #1 true fighter in America, our brother Warren Ballentine's back on the Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J show. What's up, bro?
Marcus J, my man, my brother, how are you?
I'm outstanding, man. It's good to hear your voice. I'm glad to have you back on the show with us tonight.
Man, it's always an honor to be with you, man. I always love being with you because I know you're a good brother, and I know you're fighting the real fight for us, the people.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well, a couple of things I want to talk to you about tonight, and obviously last week, you know, with the executive order that the president signed, we got to get into that, and also want to get your opinion about the protest that's going on in the National Football League right now. But before we get to that, back in August, you lost a friend. I lost a mentor who I never met, but I know that you have met him. We lost Richard Claxton Gregory, and last Thursday was his birthday. Why don't you take a minute, reflect on your friend, and share with our listeners what it was like for you as a young guy. You and I are the same age. Dick was 40 years older than us, and he was still somebody that you rocked with, and he rocked with you. Talk to the listeners a little bit about your relationship with Dick Gregory.
Well, you know, I mean, Dick was a very unique individual, and his uniqueness wasn't that he was able to kind of look at things for not what they were showing us, but for what they were. His uniqueness was that he understood the importance of the difference between being an elder and an older. And I'm saying it that way because he said it to me this. He said this to me. He said, look, I'm older than you. I have wisdom that you don't have, but I want to be an elder to you. And I said, well, what's the difference? And he said, the difference is, as an elder, I'm not going to only share my knowledge with you and my wisdom with you. I'm going to try to open doors for you. And that's the difference. And so he was one of these people that he valued anybody and anything that was a humanitarian and that wanted to help the good of not just black people, of all people. You know, Dick would tell stories. You know, I would be in D.C. and he, I, and Joe Madison would go walking. And so I would just sit there and listen to the stories from Dick and Joe. And you talking about two dudes that can tell some tales? Oh man, you talking about some stories, man. Look, but it was for me. It was so good to be with them because of the education that I was getting, the knowledge I was receiving, and you know, my friends would be like, "Man, you don't want to go party right quick?" No, man, I'm gonna go hang out with Dick Gregory. What? Dick, what you gonna be doing with Dick? You gonna sit around and talk? You don't want to go chase no girls? Nope. Want to listen to Dick because the reality of it is I learned this from my grandmother, and it's something I say all the time on my show. We're only one generation removed. If that generation doesn't pour that wisdom, that knowledge into the next generation, that generation's knowledge and wisdom is gone. And Dick Gregory was a king at pouring that knowledge and wisdom into the next generation. And it's funny because the first time that I met Dick, I met him at an event, and I said, well, I want you to come on the show. And he came on the show. This had to be maybe around 2005. And our friendship started to blossom, and then he started coming on a weekly segment. And so my mother called into the show, and I didn't know she was calling in, and she was like, Dick Gregory, you owe my daddy and my family $100. And he said, well, who is this? She said, who is this? He said, who is this? She said, this is Peaches. This is Goody's daughter. And he started busting out laughing. He was like, oh, my God. He was like, Goody Watkins? Goody Watkins is your daddy? She said, yes. And then she said, and guess who you talking to as the host? And he said, who? He said, that's my son. That's Goody Watkins' grandson. He fell out. He was like, you mean to tell me that this boy is Goody Watkins' grandchild? He's like, no wonder I like this little boy so much. Wow.
I never heard you tell that story before.
Yeah, him and my grandfather were really, really good friends in Chicago. My grandfather had his own big band. He was a saxophone player. And so he would travel with Dick Gregory and open up for Dick, play his music. He has theme music, everything. And I had no idea about this. I had no idea about it. So, you know, my mother just happened to be listening to the show and called in and was like, "You owe my family $100, Dick Gregory." But, you know, that's something else that we laughed about and joked about. And, you know, so many people knew him from the stories that he told. But, see, for me, Dick Gregory wasn't just a storyteller. He was somebody who, when you looked at what he did with his life, he was an example. He was an example of what a father should be. He was an example of what a husband should be. He was an example of what a black man should be for the rest of black men. He was an example of what we should be for our community. You think about this man, I mean, really think about this. He's in the height of his career. He's making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he's spending his own money to help a preacher out of Atlanta for the civil rights movement. I mean, you got to really think, how many people would do that right now today? How many people would go, I'm going to jeopardize my own success to help the success of my people?
I don't know too many. I don't know too many. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. We're talking to our brother, the number one true fighter, Warren Ballentine, about Dick Gregory. Warren, let me ask you about some of the crazy stuff that Dick would say. I mean, I would listen to you guys talk when you would have him on the show. I've been listening to you that long, and I would hear him say some stuff, and quite frankly, I would just bug out, like, man, this dude's crazy. But I would get it because I understood who Dick Gregory was when I was a teenager. So I always kind of knew who he was, and then when I had the opportunity to meet him myself, I was able to thank him for the life lessons that I was able to acquire from him and the legacy that I was able to acquire from him, and the fact that I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people, but here was a man that shook the hand of pretty much every single mentor that I've had outside of my own immediate circle. He shook the hand of Warren Ballentine. He shook the hand of Martin Luther King. He shook the hand of Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, you know what I'm saying, and some others whose names I'm not saying right now. So I was able to feel all of that energy and just appreciate it. And I was able to look him in the eye and thank him. And I was able to tell him about Legacy Internet Radio. He told me to keep on going and keep doing what I was doing. But having said that, listening to him do the speech that he did that night, he was saying some crazy stuff, and people sometimes didn't know how to take him. What's your thoughts on that when you would hear him say certain things that were somewhat outlandish, but if you knew the man, you kind of understood where he was coming from?
Well, for me, Dick Gregory was a visionary, and he was what I would call a master safe breaker. And I'm saying it like that because what he was doing when he was saying the crazy stuff was he was just trying to get your attention enough for you to pay attention to the real stuff. And he was trying to get you to open up your thought process in a way that you normally wouldn't open it up. Because, see, the people who really were around it understood that when he said something that seemed like it was completely off the wall, it was being said for two reasons. One, to make sure you paying attention, because when you hear it, you're like, what the hell you just say? It makes you stand up and listen to what he said. But two, he was trying to get you to look at something in a way that you've never thought about it before. Like, I remember the first time he came on and we were talking about the Bible. And when he told people, look, anybody can write a Bible, people were mad as, what do you mean? Don't be blasphemy in the Bible. And then he said, look, what does the Bible say? And they were like, it says the Holy Bible. No, it says King James's version of the Holy Bible. See, his whole thing was, I want you to look at stuff and think about stuff a little bit differently than they're telling you, because what I'm saying may sound crazy, but it may not be crazy. Like when he would say, if Jesus died and on the third day he rose. If he died on Friday, the third day wouldn't be Sunday.
No.
But people don't want to. They didn't want to think about it like that. They didn't want to think, because the third day it'd be Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And so his whole thing was, let me say something that people think is a little out there, but in the same process, if I can get them to think about this in a way they never thought about it, now when I present other things, they can see these things in a way that they never thought about looking at them before.
Right. No, and that makes total sense. And that's the psychology that was Dick Gregory. You know, one thing that always impressed me about him was this was a man who had a lucrative career. You know, he was on the top of the world of comedy, could have done movies, could have done anything he wanted, and he traded it in for the people. You know, and that to me is the kind of sacrifice that I think has been missing from our consciousness since that generation. Some will call that the greatest generation. And I've heard you say many times after the civil rights movement of the 60s, the folks in the 70s just quite frankly were out for themselves and did not want to suffer the same fates that some of those folks in the 60s had done. Dick was someone that didn't care about that. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on how he sacrificed for the people.
Well, I mean, in order to be somebody who is in any position of leadership, you have to be a servant to the people. You can't be a dictator. You got to be a servant leader. That's what you got to be. And Dick was a servant leader. He realized that this was much bigger than him, that it was much more important than him, and you have to think like that. And to him, it wasn't a sacrifice; it was a joy. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, hey, sometimes it's nerve-wracking. Sometimes I get bothered, but in the end, I'm doing it because it's what I really love to do. And that's what it was for Dick. Dick really loved his people. He loved being able to talk about things and look at things that normal people wouldn't talk about and wouldn't look at, and especially if it helped us advance. And see, part of the problem is the reason why that generation was so great was because that generation didn't have the fear that was put into us after they assassinated King and Malcolm X and even the Kennedys. And this fear has grown so big in our community now that I don't know if we will ever recover, because people are so afraid of losing their jobs, losing their position, losing their title, losing what little crumb they got, that they're not worried about splitting that crumb with anybody else. And that's the difference. They understood in that generation, one, we can't be afraid, and two, if I got a quarter, you got 12.5 cents, and I got 12.5 cents.
Yeah, I think that's definitely missing, and that's one of the things that I love about you, because on the Warren Ballentine show, every single day you're talking about how we can get together with group economics, and there are a number of different avenues that you have done, or led, I should say, that have allowed folks to come together. And I think the key with all of that, not only is the success where folks will be able to benefit in a financial way, but folks are benefiting knowing that you can actually work together and come together and actually do something. I think, to me, that's one of the biggest pluses of the things that you're doing. So I want to thank you for that. Now, I know your time is limited. Two quick things. I'll move off of Dick for just a second. Two quick things I want to get your opinion on before I let you go. The first, recently the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, signed an executive order that will basically begin the process of dismantling the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And you have also seen it fail in both houses of Congress many times. So he's taken it upon himself to executive order his way into infamy, as I like to say. What's your thoughts on what he did?
Well, I call him 44.9. I don't even call him 45 or president. He's 44.9 to me. But look, my thoughts about 44.9 is just simply this, man. It is clear that this man is trying to roll back everything that he can that President Obama put on the books. He wants to erase him out of the books of the historical records of the presidency. to the point where 100 years from now, the greatest accomplishment would be he was the first person he wasn't the first black president, but he'll be recognized as the first black president in American history. And I think that's the ultimate goal here. I think that the reason he ran for president is because he was so outdone by the fact that this black man stood up at a correspondence dinner and made fun of him, that he was like, if this blank can be president, I can be president too. And that's why I think he ran. And I think that he's doing this because he genuinely dislikes and hates President Obama. And so this doesn't surprise me with him doing what he's doing with the Obamacare, what they did with the DOJ, rolling back the civil rights stuff that Obama did. Everything that President Obama did, even from lumber deals with Canada, he rolled all of it back because he don't want nothing on the books to remind people that this man was president.
Yeah, and you got a lot of folks who will look at those things that he's done and say that it's got nothing to do with President Obama, but those are usually the people that are Donald Trump friendly. I've asked folks in social media as well as, on the show, give me anything, just something that he's done that has been positive. And a lot of the things they've said are things that were a part of President Obama's budget, which didn't expire until October. The new budget didn't take over until October 1st. You know what I'm saying? So you're talking about all the jobs and all this kind of stuff. Ironically, September was the first month in, 6-7 years that we lost jobs, or we didn't gain as many jobs as we had been getting. And you can argue that that is the end of President Obama's budget, one. And two, you can also argue that the hurricanes had something to do with all of that. Speaking of hurricanes, I'm going to add this one last piece, and we're going to get to the kneeling. What you think of how he acted and treated Puerto Rico, man? I know you got family there.
Man, look, let me say this, man. Before Puerto Rico, I tried to give this man at least the benefit of the doubt and was saying that, maybe he's not a racist, maybe he's just an opportunist, and maybe he's just, because he's grown up with wealth, he looks down on those who don't have wealth. But after Puerto Rico, there's no doubt in my mind that this man is a racist. There's no doubt in my mind that he views anybody who has a hue or melanin in their skin as less than him, to the point he's throwing paper towels like he's the emperor, and he's throwing grapes to the crowd. I mean, look, the truth of the matter is, bottom line, 44.9, somebody need to whip his ass one good time. It'll straighten him up there.
I'm going to tell you this, bro. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, and a lot of my best friends then and now are Puerto Ricans, and they ain't look like no Puerto Ricans I knew. You the president and everything, but you don't get to throw paper towels at me. It's some paper towels when the island is underwater. You throwing paper towels, and you telling these people that, we ain't going to be here long. Y'all in debt. And Katrina was worse, and just the level of insensitivity was incomprehensible, which moves me to my last.
He's so dumb. He did an interview talking about how great a crowd it was and how they was begging him to throw paper towels at him. I'm like, this damn dummy.
Oh yeah, he also said he had a conversation with the president of the Virgin Islands, not realizing that he himself is the president of the Virgin Islands. Like, dude, what is wrong with you? Last thing I want to get to is the protests. I got my opinion on it. I want to have yours. We know about Colin Kaepernick. You and I, we've talked about that before, but I haven't had an opportunity to talk to you on Ain't No Half Step on Marcus J here on Legacy Internet Radio about Donald Trump's interjection of himself into this discussion. Jump in here. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think Trump has purposely interjected himself into this, and I think it's two reasons. One, I think it's because he's mad that the NFL didn't allow him to get into the NFL when he was trying to get a team, when he tried to get his USFL team in there or buy the team before he got the USFL team. And then I think the second reason is because it's part of a bigger plan to vilify black athletes. I think he wants to vilify the black athlete to make the black athlete no longer the hero but the villain. I mean, you had athletes who hadn't been kneeling, start kneeling, and you had fans who had been screaming for them, wearing their jerseys, going to their games, all of a sudden telling them to shut up and you unpatriotic and all this other stuff to try to make black men look bad. I think that's purposely being done. And you see it every day in the media. You turn on any local news, it's always a story about somebody black killing somebody. You look at our music, it's all about death, guns, drugs, and women. When you look at our television shows, I mean, everything they're putting is subliminal messages to make black people and brown people look a certain way. And this right here is why Trump interjected. This is why they're making this issue with Colin Kaepernick not about police brutality, but about love of country, love of flag, love of police, because they want people to think that black and brown people care nothing about this country. So when they isolate us from the rest of the world and the race war do start, because it is going to be one. It's not happening yet, but it's coming. When they isolate us and cut us off from the rest of the world, using the NDAA, using all the cybersecurity stuff that Obama actually signed, that's when you're going to know that the Steve Bannon plan was in full effect since 44.9 took off.
Yeah. As you always say on your show, it's not a conspiracy, it's a plan. You know. So,
all the time.
Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Number one true fighter, Warren Ballentine, is joining us here on the show. Warren, in closing, tell the listeners of Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. how they can find you and how they can rock with you.
Man, they can find me on Twitter at TruthFighter1. They can watch the show every day, 10 to 1, Monday through Friday. Go to thewbshow.com, thewbshow.com, and just hit the Periscope, Monica, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and you see my big pie face up there talking.
You got it. Warren, hold the line. You're listening to Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. live from the Den of Legacy Internet Radio. Our brother, the number one true fighter, Warren Ballentine, has joined us in the segment. We're going to take a break. We come back. We got more of Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Be back in a few. Y'all stay with us.